I'm Sridhar Angar. So I'm here to talk about a different topic. Surprisingly, after the previous topic, which was about raising capital, this is a completely different contrarian view. And like the previous speaker said, there's no right or wrong way to do it. So it depends on what you want to do as a company, what's your DNA, what's your strength, and really what you want to do. But before getting into that, this is basically a story. And it's going to be easy listening. This is our story, right? Zoho story. So what I'm telling you now is to share some insights and learnings that we have experienced. And personally, it's been a fantastic journey for me because I've experienced this firsthand over the last 26 years being part of the initial team. Here goes. So let me start with who we are at Zoho. By the way, quick show of hands. How many know Zoho? How many have you have? Well, we've got a Zoho fan club. I think the rest of the guys are over there. We need to get them here. So I may be preaching to already. So this was basically to introduce who Zoho is. But since all of you know, this is a quick snapshot of who we are in terms of numbers, right? We're a global company with a very new team and office in Europe, which we started 4 years back. But then as a company, we've been in existence for the last 26 years with a lot of products, a lot of employees spread worldwide, spreading the message of Zoho and professing the Zoho way. I consider myself to be the Zoho cultural ambassador to the European office as well. So that's basically the thinking. And so what do we do as a company? So if you look at it, we basically are a B2B company. We provide software to power all aspects of your business, right? So think of it as sales team using CRM, or your customer support wanting to use a help desk software, or marketing automation for marketing, or your internal teams need way to collaborate, so like an online office and things like that. So you compete with, when someone asks me, who's your competitor? I ask them, what product are you talking about? Or what category are you talking about? Because we compete with so many different products and companies, right? So that's a very rough spread of what we do. But then I was going to tell you a story, right? And this is our story of how we began and how we got here. So there might be some nuggets or something you find interesting as a takeaway. And if not, then hopefully it's a good 20-minute session. All right, so how did we start? It all began in a very small place called Chennai. Anybody heard about Chennai? Zoho employees are not allowed to raise their hands. All right, thanks. So Chennai is basically, if you want to know where it is on the world map, you see that red dot there? In India, that's where it is. So the company established there as well as in the US at the same time because some of our founding team was there. So what did we do? Did we start building SaaS products in 1996? Because that's when we started. No, we actually started with something very down to earth. In 1996, we didn't want, there was no Google to compete with, but there were Microsoft and Oracles and other things. So the first job for us, because the fundamental building block for us is to be a bootstrap company. That decision was already made. So what do we do? If you're bootstrapped, then you have to find a way to basically run the company, be profitable. So find a niche, find your spot that can help you generate products to build, to basically bring in the money. So that's how we started. So what did we start with? 1996. The year was 1996. Internet was very new. Networking was very new. And then there was a newfangled technology called Java coming up, which was basically cross-platform. And then we said, okay, let's do this. Let's build software for networking and network management because devices are going to be everywhere. You need a way to manage it. So we built software under the brand of what we call WebNMS. That was the first brand, and that's evolved to a very successful brand. Still runs. Still, we have a lot of customers. So this was a software to power all network devices. So it went into routers, switches, firewalls, all that to manage all these devices in the connected world because that was the promise of the late 90s, right? Connected world, networked. So the target market was for us was telecom OEMs who would basically OEM the software embedded into their devices, right? So till now, WebNMS has grown into a very successful brand over time, having lots of customers, being the first in its own market segment, leading, all of that. But then, this is where it's headed now. This is where we are now. But if you see, a company that started in 1996 had some turbulent moments, especially in the early years. So if someone's been around long enough, heard about the dot-com, you can imagine how it would be. So a lot of our customers back in those days were also startups and telecom startups. That was a whole boom about the optical network and all that, right? So that's when the dot-com bubble burst happened, and it hit us. Hit us really hard because you can't see the visual there. That's strange. That the number there is 90. 90% of our customers vanished because a lot of them were startups. A lot of them were, going on this promise of building up something really big. That's when the bubble burst and this happened. So what did we do? So we had basically great technology. We had products. We had people with knowledge. We were profitable, right? The key thing is the company's always been profitable since first year of inception. Also being bootstrapped. So we said that, okay, we've got everything. Let's look at another niche to get into. Let's diversify. When I said diversify, it's not pivot, which means the older brand stays where it does. We continue investing in a slower way, but then we diversify, look for other opportunities to go after. And this was the opportunity. Basically, we looked at the market. We said, let's look at, IT is coming up with a big way. All companies will be digitally powered. This was early 2000s, 2001. When they've got all the stuff in an office, in a company, you need a way to manage it. And enterprise IT is a big opportunity. So let's get into that. So we started building a different set of products for enterprise IT management under the second brand that we launched, that is called Manage Engine. Very successful. It's still very popular in its own category. A lot of people don't know Manage Engine is a part of Zoho. What happened? See, that's why you need IT. That's our opportunity. There's a loose connection there. All right, so you get the picture. So we diversified into enterprise IT management under the brand name of Manage Engine. The target was to go after enterprise IT departments who would use this. Right? So very successful, as I said. Manage Engine runs as an independent operating division within Zoho, has its own set of customers, very mature products for various things that you want to do under IT. So what next? We've also been a very curious company, right? You have to be curious. You have to see what's coming up. And two of the trends that we started, so we had two business lines, right? We had the web NMS, telecom, as well as Manage Engine. So we've been curious. We always watch what trend is happening. In 2004, we could actually see two trends that came up. One was open source, and second was software as a service. At that point of time, all our software were on-premise, deployed, installed software. So we were thinking, oh man, if SaaS becomes a big trend, we're going to be out of business. We have to do something about it. So we've always been a curious company that likes to fiddle around with upcoming trends, right? And you have to do that if you have to be adaptable, you have to be an agile company. Because only in hindsight do you know what trend will pick up and become mainstream and what trend doesn't pick up. But unless you play the game, you won't know. So we actually played in both these segments, open source and SaaS. And one of the early sets of products that we did under the SaaS line of business, which became the Zoho business line, was basically CRM and online office. This was in 2005. So we said we're going to get into that, build up a SaaS cloud business to serve the B2B market and target all companies worldwide. So that was basically the reason behind going after the SaaS market. So that was a third business line that we got into. Like I said, like Steve said, we had 75 million happy customers, users. We've got some in the audience, so thank you for looking at Zoho. And it's going very well. So if you look at us over time, last 26 years, we've got three business lines, very different markets, very different technology, but built by the same company, built by the same set of people. Basically, how do we build all these products, right? We had the same people who worked on Web and MS. Some of them were taken out, and then they started building Manage Engine. When Manage Engine matured, we took some leadership people, moved it to Zoho. It's not something as though we went out, hired a new set of people to bring in to build all this. It was all done internally, right? It's not showing some of the graphics again. I don't know why. But along the way, we had a few inflection points in our company. It's never easy, right? So the dot-com bubble in 2001 and 2008, the financial crisis, we survived those. And this is what our CEO famously says. If we can survive the bubbles, we can actually thrive in the bust. Because surviving in the bubble for a bootstrap company is the most extremely difficult thing. Because there's so much money floating around, it's difficult to, and we are a company that spends money very sensibly, right? So, and then there's, of course, the current bubble if people are not tuned in. And we are gearing up for that as well. Might burst any time. So if you look at all this, the story that I just described, there's a pattern to all this. So I'm going to talk about those elements of what it's taken to build up a business. So here's basically the thinking and philosophy that we've adapted. Being a bootstrap company, being here for long term. So that's a very long-term thinking about everything that we do. Be it building products, be it entering markets, be it hiring people. What's the kind of company culture we want to set? All of that. All of our decisions are guided by this long-term view of things. So I'm going to talk about 4 fundamental building blocks that affect us as a company. So the values and business models, people part of it, culture, and then market and customers. All of them have this common underlying thread. The philosophy is thinking long-term, thinking whole, which is basically thinking holistic about everything. And then, of course, patiently execute. It's taken us 26 years to get here. So the patient execution is part of it. So I'm going to start with, typically, a company thinks about an exit strategy. We've got a no-exit strategy. That means that we are not here to exit the business. We love doing what we do. We're going to continue doing it for as long as it takes. Because there's no reason to exit it. We love doing this. The second is, if you're going to be a business that's going to sustain for long term, you need a differentiator. You need to build moats. In our case, we've used technology as our moat because there were SaaS companies, there were B2B business software before us, but we wanted to do it in a different way where customers buy us because of the products, not because they hear great thing about us from sales or marketing and all that. The product does the talking. So we built a lot of deep expertise when it comes to the technology and the technology stack. So normally speaking, any SaaS company would actually look at the top 3 layers, which is basically, I don't know if you can read it, the apps, services, and software. But we also look at what's underneath that. The hardware, which means looking at how efficiently are the chips running. How do we run some applications on the GPUs? Looking at networking devices, optimizing firewalls, optimizing WAN so that apps are available. They're fast for our users to use that. And then the data centers on which it runs. So we don't actually use any of the third-party data centers. We have our own data centers around the world, 10 of them, including 2 in Europe, because we have to be GDPR compliant. All the data stays there. But these are data centers that Zoho runs using, of course, our own tools, which is Manage Engine. But then these are all the servers that we buy, the software, the OS, everything is very customized. Some of the databases, all that. The entire stack capability is what helps us build this differentiator of, that gets into the product. All the products that you see, 50 plus, are running on the common platform. That's another way how we can launch projects quickly. So these are the ways how you can be competitive, how we've been competitive. So this end-to-end depth and breadth of product coverage to do everything that a business needs is essential. And we continue to do that as we find niches and gaps that we don't address. We will build products. We continue to do that. And of course, you have to have the execution around the product, which is your sales, marketing, operations, and all of that. But product is the starting point for us. Hang on. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the Sas profitability, right? So people have been looking at growth at all costs. But what's important for a bootstrap company is to look at profitability. And this is something that we look at very closely. There's a wise person who said that companies don't get killed by competition, they commit suicide. And for a lot of software companies, SaaS companies as well, that suicide is because of lack of financial runway to run the company. And that means that if you've got huge costs factored in, you're never going to be profitable. You can get priced out. You will never, it's going to be difficult to survive. So this basically was the first factor for us. If you're bootstrapped, you have to be profitable. You have to run the company efficiently in everything that you do. It could be sales, marketing, and all that. So for us, it's always been product, and then marketing and sales, in that order. So if the product's not there, the marketing and sales don't talk about it. Things like that. Another important cost factor, fancy locations. You'll never find a Zoho office in a fancy location. We're always off-center. So when someone tells me you're based in Netherlands, is your office in Amsterdam? I say, no, it's in Utrecht. They ask me, when you're in the US, is it in San Francisco? No, it's in Austin. But now Austin has become like San Francisco because everybody's moving to Austin now. Similarly in Germany, similarly in France, we'll have an office soon. And in the UK as well. So these are basically, because if you look at it, where we are doesn't matter to our customers. The cost advantage that we get is what we pass on to the customers by building great products which are affordable as well. So that's what customers care about. So focus on what matters. That's what we've been always doing. The last point on frugal innovation. Most of the products start as small teams. And when it has certain indicators that it's getting successful, we basically take it to the next level. So I'm going to talk about markets and customers. So one very important thing for us is, customers, we look at customers with a very long-term-ish mentality. That means that if you do something bad to the customer, it's going to haunt you for the rest of your life. In our case, the rest of the company's life. So the value of good karma cannot be understated, right? Which means that customer wants support, you're there for them. We even have customers back from the late 90s who are with us. We've even got customers who went from web NMS to manage engine to Zoho, just because they liked the kind of company we are, they like the product. And that's very important if you want to do this long-term game. Also, customers don't want a very friction model, which means that friction with product, friction with sales, friction with everything. So you have to be an easy company to deal with, right? Which means that customers don't like to get logged into long-term contracts. We actually don't do any long-term contracts unless the customer asks for it specifically. So that's one way. The other thing is, if customers are not happy for whatever reason, it is better to let them go. Never keep unhappy customers with you, because they'll probably talk about their unhappiness factor to 10 more people, you'll get more unhappy customers. The clicker is really slow. Oh. All right. Now there's this concept of, we are leaving money on the table. A lot of customers told us, we could have paid higher. And after the deal is signed, they said, oh man, you threw away, at rock bottom prices. And for us, it's okay. Because we're also a learning company. The products may not be perfect. And we are not here to squeeze the customers. That's one fundamental characteristic. If you squeeze the customer, they will leave you. If not this year, next year. So we're happy that way. There's enough room for customers to expand. They'll never exhaust their budget with us. So that's an important factor, right? Frictionless. Very important character, in today's context is the concept behind data privacy and security. Now, people have woken up to the fact after GDPR came in in 2018 saying that data has to be private, secured, and all that. But this is a fundamental building block right from day one for us that we would never monetize customers' data. We would never serve ads. And that's not the model. The model is going to be build great software, charge for it, people pay for it. So this privacy culture has been ingrained in the company from day one. So it's basically privacy by design, what GDPR says. And that's basically something the customers like about us. That's why we set up our European data centers in 2015. Another important part of our company is the people, right? So if you think about all the products that we've built, all the things that we've done, it's not by people who had some magic they brought in and then they built it. It's basically the same people who learned something new and built something. They made mistakes and learned along the way, which is why this hiring for attitude and adaptability is very important for us. More than skills, experience, prior training. So there's this notion, right? I'm not able to find right people. So I think you have to create the right people. It's not about finding them. It's about creating and building them and nurturing them. And basically giving them this environment and opportunity to learn and grow, and they will contribute. Having that trust and faith in them. So here's another example of an experiment that we ran. Zoho Schools of Learning. This is something that we started in 2005, I think, or 17 years back. We basically got in young people who dropped out from either college or who never could afford a college degree because it's expensive, right? More so if you're in the US, college degrees and student debts are at a terrifying high right now. So what we did is we basically got in those students with the right attitude, like I said. We trained them, we put them on we have an in-house faculty which would train them. After 2.5 years, they would be part of our product teams as interns. They spent probably 4 or 5 years learning the ropes on the job. And then they become good at software. And then we have extended that, and we've basically seen a lot of success with that. And we've run that for around 17 years now. It has basically 2 benefits. Benefits for the employee, but also the employer, because we get talent. We get to build the talent and keep the talent. And they are basically getting into a field where they had no hopes of getting in, right? So that's actually a win-win. And as anyone who's been trying to hire people knows, it's incredibly difficult to find people. That's also a problem. But this also helps us to think and execute long-term, right? Because you have people with you who have been long-term, who understand the philosophy, who learned the ropes, and who appreciate it. So some fun facts is 15% of our company, of our people, come from Zoho schools. We've expanded this to other areas. So there is a Zoho school. It started out with engineering and programming. It's now Zoho schools for design, for business. And that was our own realization. If we can do this with engineering and software, why not other areas? So we expanded this, and it's going well. So another part of this long-term thing with people is people also stick around. So like I said in my slide there's around 1,000 plus people who have been with us for over a decade. And that's very important to build this long-term kind of a vision for the company, right? Because if people move around a lot, what happens with software is, if someone leaves, someone else has to come in and pick up that software, understand the code. They will do it a completely different way. They would not have known what that was designed for. And that's a problem because then the customers will see a different way of the software working because it's got a new person's mind and thinking in it. And that just doesn't work. So there has to be this continuity. And it has to do with people sticking around, right? I'll just finish up with culture. So how do we run the company, right? We are 12,000 plus. We take a very decentralized approach. It's completely opposite to a centralized approach to managing and running the company. So the teams are very decentralized, almost runs like each is a separate company, which is a good or bad. With a common thread that links the product teams in terms of learning, we are very well connected using our own products and collaboration tools, where people are connected, people are sharing their knowledge and all that. And teams are empowered to make decisions. People are empowered to make decisions. So decision is pushed down to the to level the people who have most visibility about it. And we encourage to do that. It also basically helps people become more responsible, take up more ownership. And all that is within the fabric of this common culture, right? The culture is what is the binding glue to keep them together. The other part of this is a culture of experimentation. A lot of our products today that you see came from experimentation. Because we never knew whether we will succeed. We never knew there was a market for it. But sometimes you just have to do it and see if it works out. And do it in a frugal way, like I said, right? So do it sensibly. And if it doesn't work out, you just move on. You do something else. So the Zoho CRM set of product, which is one of our leading flagship products, was actually born out of a failure of a project that got cancelled. We had 10 people freed up, 5 people freed up. What should we do? Monday morning they come in and say, let's do CRM. They had no idea about CRM. They learned and they built it. And I think we're doing fairly well on CRM. But the same philosophy on other products as well. Zoho Finance requires a financial background. So we had, this also, we actually also tell people, we have to do this. Any volunteers? And then people step up and then take responsibility. But when they step up, they have to do that with dedicated focus. Only then will it work. Same thing, all of our products starts off as small experiments, right? By the end of the day, so this decision of building a company bootstrapped, this allows us the freedom to do all this. If we were not bootstrapped, if we had an external investor, what they would tell us is, you have no experience doing this, you've never done it, it's going to fail, you shouldn't do it. And we would not be able to make the decisions. We would not be where we are. So it actually worked well for us, right? So this business model and the culture we built around that is basically shaping up the kind of products that we build, the way we build it, way we ship it, way we interact with customers, way we interact with our employees, right? And that goes just beyond, build up a profitability for payday. That's not the point. Most employees get a very good, they're paid well. And, that's not the end goal. The end goal, what we have realized over a period of time is, this business, profitable business, is to do something else. It's an enabler for different things. Build talent, build skills. Because digital economy is going to require all these skills. Where are the people going to come from? Digital transformation is going to require all this technology and product to work. Where's that going to come from? So that's the bigger purpose, and then giving back to society. So things like, another experiment we did is, in India, and this will follow up in other continents as well, is running rural offices. We basically have rural offices, let's say, place like this or somewhere else far out, where basically we would build up a team with a local anchor who would actually basically build up a knowledge center or a product hub there, things like that. So, and that basically spreads prosperity to the region, to the local community. And that's a way of giving back. People there would get employment, for which normally they would have gone to a bigger city to do that. The problem with bigger city is then everybody's going to bigger city, it becomes crowded, expensive, and all that. So how do you disperse this, this kind of knowledge and prosperity around in other smaller places? So all the aspects that I talked about here are basically interconnected. It all ties back down to the philosophy and business model. And it depends on what you believe in, right? So I'll just end with this note, saying that, all of this thing that I talked about is not new. You all know about it. We were all brought up as kids to know about, the value of spending money wisely or long-term thinking. We just forget that as we grow up. And that's something we've remembered. And we used to build up the business. So all this will work well together when you have the right set of people and conviction. I'll just leave with this slide. And thank you all for being here. Sorry for being a little bit late on time.
No problem. I just think it's great.